Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive into something pretty intense?
Yeah.
We're talking about glacial lake outburst floods.
GLOFs?
Or GLOFs for short. You might be thinking, okay, what's so intense about a flood?
Right.
Well, imagine this. A massive wall of water, ice, and debris surging down a mountain valley,
Oh, wow.
obliterating everything in its path.
Yeah.
That's a GLOF. And today, we're going to unpack
Yeah.
how these things form, what triggers them, and why they're a growing concern.
What's fascinating is that there are actually two main types of GLOFs,
Okay.
each with its own unique characteristics.
Interesting.
We have moraine dam GLOFs
Okay.
and ice dam GLOFs.
Gotcha.
Understanding this difference is key to understanding the potential risks
Right.
and how we can mitigate them.
Okay, so two different types. What's the difference? Does one type pack more of a punch than the other?
They definitely have their own personalities, so to speak.
Okay.
Let's start with moraine-dammed lakes. These form when glaciers retreat, leaving behind piles of rock and sediment called moraines.
I see.
Think of it like a natural dam,
Okay.
holding back a growing pool of meltwater.
So a moraine is like a giant pile of rubble left behind by a melting glacier.
Yeah, pretty much.
Makes sense. And then the meltwater gets trapped behind it,
Right.
forming a lake.
Exactly.
What's the problem with that? Aren't natural dams pretty sturdy?
Well, not all natural dams are created equal.
Oh, okay.
Moraines, by their very nature, are made of loose, unconsolidated material. They tend to be narrow and steep,
Oh, okay.
which makes them less stable than, say, a solid bedrock dam.
Yeah, I'm starting to see the issue here.
Hmm.
So if a moraine dam fails, that's when we get a GLOS.
Exactly. And when a moraine dam fails,
Right.
it tends to fail catastrophically.
Oh, wow.
Think of it like bursting a balloon.
Okay.
All that pent-up water is released suddenly and violently,
Yeah.
creating a massive surge downstream.
Okay, that sounds terrifying.
It can be.
So what causes these moraine dams to give way?
Hmm.
Is it just a matter of time, or are there specific triggers?
There are definitely triggers.
Okay.
Imagine a huge avalanche or a rock fall plunging into the lake.
Oh, I see.
That sudden displacement of water can create a massive wave that overtops the moraine, causing it to erode and breach.
Like a tsunami in a mountain lake.
Okay, I can see how that would be disastrous.
It can be, yeah.
But earlier you said moraines are made of loose material.
Right.
Doesn't that mean they're always vulnerable?
Yeah.
Why do some last for centuries while others fail after just a few years?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It turns out the composition of the moraine matters a lot.
Okay.
Factors like grain size distribution, how well the material drains internally,
Okay.
and even the presence of vegetation can influence its stability.
Interesting.
A moraine with a lot of large rocks acting like armor is going to be more resilient
Okay.
than one made primarily of fine sand and silt. So it's not just about the size of the lake or the height of the dam.
Right.
It's also about the internal structure of the moraine itself.
Exactly.
And what about this Imjitsho Lake you mentioned earlier?
Yeah.
Is that one of these moraine-dammed lakes?
It is.
Oh, okay.
And it's a prime example of why we need to pay attention to these GLOF hazards.
Gotcha.
Imjitsho has been growing rapidly due to accelerated glacier melt,
Okay.
and it's perched high above a valley with several villages downstream.
So thousands of people are potentially at risk if that dam fails?
Precisely.
Wow.
If Imjitsho were to burst,
Right.
it would send a torrent of water, ice, and debris down the valley,
Yeah.
potentially causing widespread devastation.
Oh, wow.
That's why scientists are closely monitoring the lake and working on mitigation strategies
Right.
to reduce the risk.
Wow. It's a sobering thought.
Yeah.
It's like this lake is a ticking time bomb,
Right.
and people are living right in the blast zone.
Okay, so we've covered moraine-dammed lakes.
Right. What about the other type you mentioned, the ice-dammed lakes?
Yeah.
How did those form?
Ice-dammed lakes are a bit different.
Okay.
They form when a glacier blocks the natural drainage of a valley,
Uh-huh.
essentially acting as a dam made of ice.
Okay.
As meltwater accumulates behind this ice dam,
Gotcha.
a lake forms.
Okay, so instead of a dam made of rock and debris,
Right.
we have a dam made of solid ice.
Yeah, exactly.
That sounds, well, less precarious than a moraine dam, wouldn't you say?
You might think so,
Yeah.
but ice dam GLOFs can be just as dangerous.
Okay.
The difference lies in how they fail.
Mm-hmm.
While a moraine dam tends to breach catastrophically,
Right.
an ice dam often fails gradually,
Okay.
releasing water in pulses.
So it's not one giant burst.
Right.
Rather a series of smaller outbursts.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this can be a bit deceptive.
Okay.
While the individual outbursts may be smaller in magnitude than a typical moraine-dammed GLOF,
I see.
the cumulative effect can still be significant. Imagine a lake repeatedly draining and refilling over time, each time sending a surge of water downstream.
I see. So it's like a slow leak that keeps dripping.
Yeah,
But eventually it can still cause a lot of damage.
a good analogy.
Yeah.
And to make things even more complex,
Okay.
the way an ice dam fails can vary depending on the glacier's dynamics.
Okay.
For instance, sometimes the water pressure builds up enough to actually lift the glacier slightly,
Oh, really?
allowing water to escape beneath it.
Wait, the glacier lifts up.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble picturing that.
Oh.
How does a giant mass of ice just lift off the ground like that?
It's a fascinating phenomenon.
Yeah.
Think of it like this.
Okay.
As the lake level rises,
Mm-hmm.
the water pressure at the base of the glacier increases.
Okay.
Eventually, this pressure can exceed the weight of the glacier, causing it to partially float,
Wow.
creating channels for the water to escape.
That's incredible. It's like the glacier is acting like a giant ice cube.
Yeah. Bobbing in a bathtub.
Yeah, kind of.
But wouldn't that make the outbursts even less intense?
Mm,
If the water is slowly escaping beneath the glacier,
right.
wouldn't that prevent a sudden catastrophic flood?
It can, but it's not always the case.
Oh,
Sometimes those subglacial channels can get clogged with debris,
I see.
causing pressure to build up until the ice dam suddenly gives way,
Mhm.
releasing a large surge of water.
Okay, so it's not always a slow leak.
Right.
It can still be a sudden burst,
Exactly.
just like with a moraine dam.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing the triggers for ice-dammed GLOFs are different from those for moraine-dammed GLOFs.
That's right.
Okay.
Instead of external events like avalanches or rock falls,
Right.
the triggers for ice dam GLOFs tend to be more internal,
Gotcha.
related to the glacier's own behavior.
Like what
Yeah.
kind of glacier behavior can trigger a GLOF?
One possibility is a surge in the glacier's flow.
Okay.
Imagine the glacier suddenly accelerating its movement.
Pushing against the ice dam and causing it to break or lift.
So it's not just the water pressure,
Right.
but also the force of the glacier itself
Exactly.
pushing against the dam.
And just like with moraine-dammed lakes,
Right.
external factors like intense meltwater input
Mm.
or heavy precipitation can play a role in increasing the pressure within the ice-dammed lake,
Yeah.
potentially pushing it toward an outburst.
So it seems like whether it's a moraine dam or an ice dam,
Right.
the stability of these natural barriers is constantly being tested
Yeah,
by a combination of factors,
exactly.
both internal and external.
And I'm sure climate change is throwing a wrench into the whole system, right?
Oh, absolutely.
As temperatures rise and glaciers melt at an accelerated rate,
Right.
we're seeing more glacial lakes forming and growing,
Yeah.
which means the potential for GLOFs is increasing in many parts of the world.
So climate change is basically loading the dice in favor of more frequent and potentially more intense GLOFs.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
Yeah. And with that somewhat concerning thought,
Mm.
we're going to continue this conversation in the next part.
Okay.
All right, we're back and ready to dive into some of the heavier stuff. We've talked about how these GLOFs form,
Right.
but what happens when they actually unleash their fury? Paint me a picture of the aftermath.
Okay.
What does a GLOF-affected area look like?
Let's just say it's not pretty.
Okay.
Imagine a wall of water,
Okay.
sometimes carrying massive icebergs and boulders,
Wow.
roaring down a valley at speeds
Yeah.
that can reach up to 30 miles per hour.
Oh, wow.
It can carve new channels through the landscape, completely reshaping the terrain.
30 miles an hour.
Yeah.
That's faster than I can run. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near that.
No,
So we're talking serious erosion.
absolutely.
Okay.
The sheer force of the water and debris
Yeah.
can scour away soil, uproot trees, and move massive amounts of sediment downstream.
Okay.
In some cases, it's like the landscape has been completely rearranged
Oh, yeah. Wow.
with new valleys carved out and hillsides stripped bare.
Wow. It's
Yeah.
hard to imagine the kind of power it takes to reshape a mountain valley like that.
Impressive.
And I bet the impact goes beyond just the physical landscape, right?
Right.
What happens to the ecosystems in these areas?
The ecological consequences can be severe. The sudden influx of sediment can choke rivers and streams, harming fish and other aquatic life.
I see.
It can also smother vegetation,
Yeah.
making it difficult for plants to recover.
Wow.
It's a real blow to the delicate balance of these mountain ecosystems.
It's like hitting the reset button on the environment.
Yeah, it can be like that.
And sadly, it's not just the plants and animals that are affected.
Right.
What about the people who live in these vulnerable areas?
GLOFs pose a very real threat to human life and infrastructure.
Right.
Villages, towns,
Yeah.
and even entire cities
Wow.
can be inundated by these floods,
Wow.
leading to loss of life, displacement,
Yeah.
and widespread damage to homes, businesses, and critical infrastructure.
That's heartbreaking. And we're not just talking about the immediate impact of the flood itself.
No.
There are also long-term consequences to consider, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
The economic fallout from a GLOF can be devastating.
Yeah.
It can disrupt agriculture, tourism,
Uh-huh.
and other industries,
Okay.
impacting livelihoods and communities for years to come.
Right.
The cost of rebuilding and recovering from these events can be astronomical.
So it's a multifaceted disaster.
Yeah,
With ecological, social, and economic implications.
it really is.
It's clear that we need to find ways to minimize the damage from these events.
Right.
Are there any effective ways to predict or prevent GLOFs?
Well, preventing them entirely is often impossible,
Okay.
but we can certainly take steps to mitigate the risks.
Mm-hmm.
One crucial aspect is monitoring.
Okay.
Scientists are using remote sensing,
Yeah.
like satellite imagery,
Right.
and ground-based instruments to keep a close eye on glacial lakes,
Gotcha.
tracking their growth
Uh-huh.
and assessing their potential for outburst.
So it's like having a finger on the pulse of these glacial lakes.
Yeah, a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Watching for any signs of trouble.
And this monitoring data allows us to develop early warning systems.
Exactly.
Okay.
So communities downstream can be alerted if a GLOF is imminent,
Right.
giving them valuable time to evacuate to higher ground.
That's a huge step in the right direction.
It is.
Knowing what's coming can make all the difference in saving lives
Absolutely.
and reducing the impact of these events.
For sure.
But is there anything we can do to actually reduce the risk of a GLOF happening in the first place?
In some cases, yes.
Okay.
There are structural measures we can implement.
I see.
For example, engineers can reinforce moraine dams
Okay.
by adding additional material
Right.
or building spillways
Gotcha.
to control the release of water. In other cases, we can actually lower the water level in a glacial lake
Okay.
by pumping or siphoning water out.
So it's like giving these natural dams a helping hand,
Yeah.
making them more resilient to failure.
That's the idea.
Okay.
And for ice-dammed lakes,
Right.
sometimes it's possible to artificially drain the lake
Okay.
by creating channels through the ice.
Wow. Carving channels through glaciers?
Yeah.
That sounds like something out of a science fiction movie.
It's pretty amazing.
But I imagine these engineering feats aren't always easy or feasible.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
These interventions can be complex,
Okay.
costly,
Right.
and sometimes risky.
Yeah.
They require careful planning,
Right.
engineering expertise,
Mm.
and a deep understanding of the local conditions.
It sounds like managing GLOF risks is a balancing act,
Yeah.
weighing the potential benefits of intervention
Right.
against the challenges and potential unintended consequences.
It certainly is.
Okay.
And it's important to remember that each GLOF hazard is unique.
Right.
There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
I see.
We need to tailor our approach
Yeah.
based on the specific characteristics of the lake,
Right.
the surrounding environment, and the vulnerabilities of the communities downstream.
So it's a combination of monitoring
Right.
early warning systems
Yes.
and strategic interventions.
Exactly.
All while recognizing the complexities and limitations of each approach.
For sure.
And this brings us back to climate change,
Yes.
as we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
Rising temperatures are accelerating glacier melt,
Exactly.
which is creating new glacial lakes
Right.
and increasing the volume of water in existing ones.
Absolutely.
So even with the best mitigation strategies in place,
Hmm.
climate change is making the GLOF problem even more challenging.
It's a major complicating factor.
Yeah,
As the climate continues to warm,
right.
we're likely to see more frequent and potentially more intense GLOFs
Hmm.
in many parts of the world.
Yeah.
And this raises a crucial question.
Okay.
How can we adapt to this changing landscape of risk?
That's a question I was just about to ask you.
Okay.
If climate change is making GLOFs more likely,
Right.
how do we prepare for this future?
Hmm.
Do we need to rethink our strategies for monitoring and mitigation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We need to be proactive,
Right.
not reactive.
Okay.
We need to invest in research
Yeah.
to better understand how climate change is influencing GLOF dynamics. We need to enhance our monitoring systems
Okay.
to keep pace with the changing landscape of glacial lakes.
Gotcha.
And we need to develop more robust and adaptive mitigation strategies
Right.
that can withstand the challenges of a warming world.
It sounds like we're entering a new era of GLOF management,
Yeah,
where the stakes are higher
Right.
and the challenges are greater.
that's a good way to put it.
Okay.
And it's not just a scientific or engineering challenge, it's a societal challenge.
Yeah.
We need to build awareness, educate communities,
Yeah.
and foster international collaboration to effectively address this growing global threat.
So it's not just about building dams and warning systems.
All right.
It's about building resilience,
Exactly.
both in our infrastructure and in our communities.
Precisely.
And with that in mind, let's shift our focus to the human side of this equation.
Okay.
How are communities responding to this growing threat? And what lessons can we learn from their experiences?
That's a crucial question.
We've talked about the science behind GLOFs, the risks they pose, and the strategies we can use to mitigate those risks. But what about the human side of this equation?
Yeah.
How are communities around the world grappling with this threat?
Right.
And what can we learn from their experiences?
That's a crucial question. We can have the best science and engineering in the world,
Right.
but if communities aren't prepared and engaged, our efforts will be far less effective.
So it's not just about building physical barriers and warning systems.
Right.
It's about building social resilience as well.
Exactly. We need to empower communities with the knowledge and tools.
Yeah.
They need to understand the risks,
Okay.
prepare for potential GLOF events,
Right.
and respond effectively when they occur.
What are some examples of communities that are doing this well?
There are inspiring examples all over the world.
Okay.
In Nepal, where the threat of GLOS is particularly high,
Right.
communities are actively involved in monitoring glacial lakes, participating in evacuation drills,
Okay.
and developing community-based early warning systems.
So they're not just passively waiting for scientists or government agencies to tell them what to do.
Right.
They're taking ownership of their own safety and preparedness.
That's right. They're working hand in hand with scientists and engineers,
Okay.
sharing their local knowledge and expertise to develop solutions that are tailored to their specific needs and context.
That makes so much sense. After all, who knows the local terrain,
Right.
the weather patterns, and the vulnerabilities of the community
Right.
better than the people who live there?
Precisely. And this kind of community-based approach is essential for building trust
Okay.
and ensuring that mitigation efforts are effective and sustainable.
Are there other examples of this community-based approach in action?
Absolutely.
Okay.
In Bhutan, for example,
Right.
communities are using traditional knowledge and practices combined with modern technology
Okay.
to monitor glacial lakes and assess risks.
I see.
They're also incorporating GLOF preparedness into their cultural traditions and spiritual beliefs,
Really?
ensuring that knowledge is passed down through generations.
That's fascinating.
Yeah,
So they're weaving GLOF awareness into the very fabric of their culture.
exactly. And this kind of holistic approach is crucial for long-term resilience.
Yeah.
It's not just about responding to immediate threats.
Right.
It's about fostering a culture of preparedness and adaptation
Okay.
that can withstand the challenges of a changing climate.
It sounds like there's a lot we can learn from these communities that are on the front lines of the GLOF threat.
There certainly is.
Yeah.
They're demonstrating the power of collaboration,
Right.
the importance of local knowledge, and the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity.
It's a reminder that even in the face of daunting challenges,
Yeah,
we can find solutions when we work together,
absolutely.
combining scientific expertise with community wisdom.
Well said. And as we conclude our deep dive into the world of GLOFs,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with a thought to ponder.
Okay.
We've discussed the two main types of GLOFs,
Right.
moraine dammed and ice dammed.
Yes.
But have you ever considered the possibility of a hybrid GLOF?
A hybrid GLOF.
One that originates from a lake dammed by both ice and moraine.
That's intriguing.
Yeah.
I hadn't even considered that possibility. What makes these hybrid GLOFs unique?
They present a unique set of challenges. because their behavior can be influenced by both the dynamics of the glacier
Right.
and the stability of the moraine.
I see.
Imagine a glacial lake perched behind a moraine dam
Okay.
that also has a large chunk of ice embedded within it. Predicting when and how that complex structure will fail is a real head-scratcher.
It sounds like these hybrid GLOFs add another layer of complexity to an already challenging problem.
You do. And they highlight the fact that our understanding of GLOFs is still evolving.
Right.
As the climate changes and glaciers continue to retreat and reshape the landscape, we're likely to encounter new and unexpected challenges.
So the more we learn, the more we realize how much more there is to learn.
That's the beauty of science, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a constant process of discovery, refinement, and adaptation.
And as we wrap up this deep dive into GLOFs, I want to encourage our listeners to keep exploring this topic.
Absolutely.
There are so many fascinating resources available online, including the ArcGIS story about glacier lake hazards in Alaska.
That's a great one
that we mentioned earlier. It's a great place to start for anyone who wants to delve deeper into the world of GLOFs.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And the more we understand about these hazards, the better equipped we'll be to navigate the challenges of a changing climate.
So keep learning.
Yeah.
Keep exploring.
For sure.
And stay curious.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of GLOFs. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.